Notice is hereby given that a regular city council meeting of the town of Laguna Vista, Texas will be held Tuesday, the 12th day of November, 2019 at 6 o'clock p.m. in the City Hall building at 122 Fernandez Street, Laguna Vista, Texas. Call to order at 6 o'clock, invocation and pledge. Our invocation is by Rusty Justice.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, we just thank you again for this day that you bless us with. Lord, we just want to thank you for being our God. We want to thank you for all the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. We're so thankful for the way you care for us and the way you provide for us, and we just pray we don't take these blessings for granted. Lord, we just lift up our country. Lord, we lift up our city. Lord, we pray that you be with our city leaders as they lead this city and this town. We pray that you be with us as we go through this meeting tonight. Lord, just give them the wisdom that they need to conduct your business. Lord, thank you again for everything you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Rusty. Roll call. Alma?
Mayor Susie Houston.
Here.
Councilmember Michael Carter.
Here.
Javon Howard.
Here.
Frank Davalo.
Here.
Rolando Gonzalez.
Here.
Victor Guerrero.
Here.
And Adrian Smith.
Alma, do we have any open?
No.
Okay. Move right along. Item 5, consent agenda items. All matters listed under this item are routine by the council and will be enacted for approval by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Minutes of the special meeting October 15th, 2019, and special meeting of October 22nd, 2019.
Okay, motion to approve with a correction. The correction is that on the 15th, October 15th meeting, resolution 2019-30, Councilman Carter and myself both voted against it.
What page is that?
What page? 3 of 7? I'll second the motion.
Motion on the floor to approve the minutes of October 15th and October 22nd special meeting with the correction of resolution 2019, did you say dash 30? Carter and, Councilman Carter and Worrell voted against it.
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Councilmember Davalo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Guerrero.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Item 6A, consideration of possible action to approve resolution number 2019-31 supporting the annexation of the Laguna Madre into the Rio Grande Valley MPO. Mr. Carter, do you want to say something about this before we have Mr. Commissioner? Okay.
Right to the commissioner.
Commissioner Bennett?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Pleasure to be here with you again tonight. With me tonight is Pete Sepulveda, our Cameron County CCRMA Executive Director and also Cameron County Administrator. Okay. He's permanent, he used to be interim, but he has now become the permanent administrator also for Cameron County. So we're glad to have him. On resolution number 2019-31, which is approval of the resolution supporting the annexation of the Laguna Madre area into the Rio Grande Valley MPO, is since the last time I have been here, the Harlingen, San Benito, Brownsville, and Hidalgo County MPOs have merged and become one MPO, as most of you have probably already read and heard. It's been a very positive thing for our area in regards to opportunities for new dollars to come into an area that sorely is in need of dollars. this particular area, Laguna Madre, has never had a seat at the table anytime, anywhere, as far as the MPOs were concerned, because of the disconnect that occurs from the three MPOs that we had and you all here. You know, you've always been represented, and we've tried to do our best from the county's perspective, but this MPO would allow for you all to become part. And it doesn't give you a seat at the table per se, but it gives you the ability to be part of a larger metropolitan planning organization that would allow for dollars that had never been available to this area to be utilized by this area. The planning for intermodal facilities, including such things as any improvements that could be done to Highway 100 or the second access and the outer loop that would connect to the upper Rio Grande Valley, are some of the things that are in the plans for the area. The support of being able to include you would be very helpful to the MPO, because it would include all of Cameron County, not just the more populated areas. So it'd be an opportunity that has never existed here, that we hope that you take into consideration and support tonight. There is absolutely no financial obligation to the city per se. There's no, nothing that would require any of the assets or resources that you now have, but would allow you to become part of a planning document that would further enhance the ability for us to grow here. So any questions, myself or Mr. Sepulveda would be happy to answer for you if we can in regards to this.
I have a question.
Yes, John.
So Commissioner, would you be the liaison between us, since we're not gonna have a seat per se, you'll be liaison, like, hey, this is available to you, small cities type
Yes.
of grant? Okay,
Yes, me, Mr. Sepulveda, and the county judge.
okay,
And the county judge sits at the council, and I am his alternate.
okay.
And Mr. Sepulveda, really, staff has always plays the major role, because they are we're at the policy level, they're at the technical level. The technical level is where everything happens. You know, we can go and we can request and we can visit and we can, you know, ask for support from the state and the feds and have legislation done and drawn so that we can all benefit. But at the end of the day, you know, the technical committees are the ones that are at the forefront of what ends up being implemented. So, yes, we would be your eyes and ears for anything that would come.
Thank you.
Not that we're not already, but.
No, I know, no, I
Being
know.
part of it, you
Right,
know,
it just like now the
it
bigger.
actually gives us, Cameron County as a whole, a better handle when we present the needs of this area to the MPO, because you would be part of it. And they are very supportive. Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Yes, glad to be here. Hope to be back soon with the final product of the other one. Should be at the end of this month when they give us the final product. I anticipate December. Okay?
Thank you guys for everything, appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean.
And which one, the port is it?
Motion on the floor, made by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Howard, to support the annexation of the Laguna Madre into the Rio Grande Valley MPO.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, with your consideration, I would like to move item L up, the AEP assessment, because Petra is here. That way she doesn't have to stay late and answer any questions. Is that okay? Okay, so we're on item L, consideration of possible action to approve 2 easements, 1A and 1C request from AEP. Ms. Petra, do you have anything to share with us?
I don't know if there's a map that I had given Anna. Here's a couple more that you can see what I'm talking about. This is the same, yeah. It's the same, it's just that we're gonna put a culvert back
This is about,
Mayor, can I ask if she maybe does a quick, small representation of what they're proposing?
And this is the proposed on the fence as well. They did not have a, they cannot print out the specs, so we went ahead and emailed them to me. Those are just the specs of the proposal for the fence.
If you can just kind of give us a quick synopsis of what this is.
Okay, they're rebuilding transmission line from Laguna Vista all the, it's about a little 12 miles radius. It goes from Laguna Vista all the way to Laguna Heights, and then from there it goes to Port Isabel, and from Port Isabel we'll cross over where Dairy Queen is, where El Pescador is. We'll go through up in Cape Man and stuff like that, and then come out where the substation is, where Garcia is, and from there we'll come in, go out through Swinging Bridge, and go through the water and come out in KOA Camp, and go through 100, all the way to Sea Turtle. And they have started the construction already as far as for the clearing on the Arteria property and the Garcia property, but we needed permission for the village of Laguna Vista. I assume, like everybody else, I thought that all the paperwork had been sent out to you all, but I found out only one of them had been sent out to you. So I went ahead and got it to Alma, I believe, sometime last week, I think. So their proposal is, the fence is down right now, but they want to tear it down because there's not much of it there. But they propose to rebuild the fence as well for you guys. I think from across the substation down to Arteria property.
You gave us 3 different maps, so I'm not exactly sure, because the explanation is very detailed, so what is that? Can you show me here on the map where this easement is exactly? Because we have this easement.
Okay,
This
how
is-
about if I
this is-
show you my,
Yes.
I
So it's 2 separate easements that
It's-
you're asking our permission for?
Yes, ma'am, 2 different, one of them is right across the substation,
And that's the one that's by Strike, over the street.
and that would be partial 2. And then, which is
Is
track
that
2.
this one? Is that this
No,
one?
ma'am, that would be partial
Oh, that's right.
4.
Okay.
And that'll help you.
So there's so many lines on here, I'm not exactly sure.
The lines are just the highway where the surveyors have come in and realized text dot and all that good stuff. But this is the property in question over here, which is all this.
The 23 acres?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
which
And
is
you're
right
asking-
here.
Yes, I know what the 23 acres is. I just wasn't sure of all these lines, what exactly is it, that you're requesting a small easement on this area right there?
Exactly.
And then as well at this intersection?
Yes, ma'am, right here.
Yes.
And then where the little
Right here.
arrow is,
Can you
they
show me
have,
this? Right there?
yes, ma'am, right here.
Just
All
that?
this Laguna Vista right here. All this is Laguna Vista, that they show.
Oh, so this whole pink area, you're requesting an easement in this area? Okay,
Yes,
so,
ma'am, which would be in front.
because that's where you're gonna cross.
Exactly.
We're over
But here, where the arrow is, there's like a big ditch,
Okay.
and what they're trying to do to avoid using the highway so much, they're trying to do it, put a culvert there,
Underneath something.
right here, and stay away from the highway to where they can come in and out. And the culvert would be temporary, since it's already a ditch there. So they would be using this back and forth trying to bring in the materials and whatnot.
Cool, that'll be a tunnel they can drive through.
It's just a culvert for right now. They'll put a temporary culvert just to use it when they're doing the transmission line, rebuilding the construction. But during the construction, but then they'll remove it when we're done, exactly, and bring it back to the way it was.
I'm
And
having
they-
a little hard
they'll
time
literally
hearing
have to
you.
dig up the whole road, put in a culvert and.
Well, actually, the ditch is already there, sir. I don't know if you ever, oh yeah, it's a pretty good sized ditch.
So they won't close the road at any point?
Oh, no, it won't. And it's off the road. It's like completely off the road. It's just right there. And you can almost see it.
Yeah, this,
Yes, ma'am.
so this is the easement you want here,
Mm-hmm.
and then also a tiny little, whatever it amounts to, what, 0.4 acres, I think you
Yes,
said,
ma'am.
all of it.
And I believe Alma said she had a question on the $10 on the beginning of it. That is a rule, that's just their lingo that they put in there. But it's not, I think one of them was like 1,000 or something like that, or,
Right. And
Yeah,
then it was
there's a-
52.
exactly.
5202, a 10, and a
Yes.
1,000, and the 10 is,
So that's-
what's that?
So that's the 3 different fees you're gonna pay us for
So
this easement?
this would be
is-
one fee,
This is this one,
yes ma'am.
okay?
And then there's
And
another
then-
fee for the other one.
And there's a 40, this is just an additional map, right? It's
Right.
confusing,
Mhm.
okay, so then there's
And
the
that would be the second, which is
$1,000,
Yes,
for what area is that?
and that's for C1, which would be this one here, I believe, for this one.
Okay, and then the $10 one.
And
And what's the
keep this
$10
in
one?
mind, they're not buying an easement, they already have it. I believe they sold it in 1930 something or something like that, but it was called the blanket easement at the time. And now that AEP's coming in to rebuild the transmission, they're trying to clean it up and just use the easement just in front of the road instead of the whole property.
Mr. Ozuna, you were saying?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the reference to the $10 in the easement is, you'll see that phrase used in pretty much every real estate conveyance instrument. It's there to make sure that the document reflects that there is consideration flowing between the parties, but doesn't make public record the amount of the transaction. That's why you'll always see that phrase $10 and other good and valuable consideration. In other words, $10, plus the other amount, 52 minus 10. That's usually how that's made up. So that the amount that we would be approving tonight would be the amounts listed on
About the
our information
5,000
sheets
and
here.
something and the 1,000.
Correct.
Exactly.
And that's what you'll pay us by the schedule
Yes,
for this,
Mhm. For each one.
for this one and this one.
Mm-hmm.
We take cash.
I wish I could, but I'm only authorized to check.
I'm just joking. Thank you, that helps a
I
lot.
have a question, Petra.
Yes, ma'am.
In several places it says the village of Laguna Vista, we're not the village of Laguna Vista, we're the town of Laguna Vista.
The sound of Laguna Vista. Okay, so would you need that revised, or would that be sufficient?
I spoke to Alma about that. It looks like there was an original conveyance instrument that has this land in the name of the village of Laguna Vista in county records.
Right.
There's never been anything to file in the county real estate records to reflect the change in name from village to town. I'm not sure that it would make a huge difference in terms of the conveyance of the rights we're talking about. I think it would probably be up to AEP to decide
Well,
whether or not they'd be more comfortable with the conveyance in the original name or in the current name. I mean, everything you're gonna see from the moment we became town is gonna have the name town on it. Or if we do any other real estate conveyances, it's gonna be a town.
and the way they went about it is that, they went through title and all that,
Right.
and that's how they got all
And
that.
that would have pulled up the
So
village.
if we were to change all that, I would have to get documentation, name change, and all that stuff. It's a process, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, whatever you'd be more comfortable with in terms of, I mean, you're the one who's the grantee.
But right now, this is what they want, just because they already spent the dollars with title research and all that stuff, and that's how they came together to put all these documents together. So it's up to you guys, if you're happy with that, we're happy with that as well.
It doesn't work a detriment to us to have the name village on this. It's a potential risk for the grantee, but if you're willing to live with that, that's fine.
But the two agreements, one says village, one says town. One does say town.
That's just the way they
Yeah.
came up with the
That's the way it
title.
came up on the searches.
Yes,
yeah.
sir,
Yeah,
exactly.
So that happens.
Any other questions of Mr. Carter?
So, like we guys cleared out on the Eternia and Garcia properties,
Mhm.
and the fence, where you left the foliage and the stuff on the fence, you gonna tear that fence down now?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, the fence was, in the situation of the Eterias and the Garcias, as you well notice, the transmission line is well right at the fence
Yeah,
line. So
exactly.
there was just no way to save that
But
fence.
you're gonna tear the fence out,
So we have permission to tear everything down and rebuild as it is.
and same with the 23 acres going that way, because there's some fences going that way too.
Yes, sir. The same thing. We're gonna rebuild as it is, and that's why I brought the specs
Yeah.
for you all as well to
Well,
see.
it'll look so much nicer, it looks so nice that it's been cleared out, and I think once,
I know.
it does, it looks great. And
So-
once they redo the fence, it'll look nice.
It'll look nice. Now, the Garcias and the Eteria family are going with the treated wood, because that's what they have now. And obviously, at one point, you guys have the same thing, but there's not much of that. So if you don't want that, just tell me, let me know in time, so they can order the materials, and then all of it will look the same, all treated wood. So it's all up to you all. So you have time on that one. The only one you don't have time is for the clearing right now, because that's where they're at right
You
now.
got the equipment up there.
And we got the equipment right there right now. Yes, Jenny.
Is it you guys that cleared that piece of land right here? That was
if-
the clearing that just happened this past week, was that you guys?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's about the width that you're gonna clear
Yeah,
all along them,
if
right?
that's okay with you guys, we went 40 feet. So it kinda looks nice, all the same, 40, unless y'all want less than that. But that's what we cleared, 40 feet.
Well, past that, there's not a lot of brush.
Exactly.
I
You don't
personally
have-
prefer the brush, but
Yeah.
I guess the continuous look is.
Well, they did too, but I mean, they could not work around, they just couldn't get to their structures with that fence being
get
so close to the fence.
Oh, since I'm so Zuma, there's a lot of very complicated legal language here that I don't really understand, and you're happy with the way it was written?
This is a very
Makes sense to
standard easement type document, and it's basically, it's not a
Well-defined.
blanket easement, it's a defined easement, a specific location
And
for
it's
specific
correct,
purposes.
everything's correct.
It has everything in it that I would expect to see in an easement in terms of the right that we are granting to AEP, and that is to build along this area, to clear any brush along the area, or any vegetation that endangers or interferes with the, we're granting, like all easements, a superior right of title to conduct activity on just this specific piece of land reflected in each easement.
And it's underground, right?
No.
Or no?
It's just as it is now, the transmission poles.
Oh, just the transmission?
Yes,
You're
it'll
not
be
gonna
the
have
poles, we're gonna change out the poles, and we're gonna change out the wire, obviously. So we can't do it underground, because there is so much underground cables and wires, and you have no idea. That's what they're doing right now as well, doing the hydrovac. I don't know if you've driven by, Port Isabel, but that's what they're doing around their structures right now. They're going down there and doing hydrovac, locating all the utilities and all that stuff. It's a mess. And it costs a lot of money at this point. I think, AEP's like over $61 million just for this project.
At your place out 510, all the poles in that yard there, are those the poles that are gonna go up here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what I
They do
thought.
not wanna, they do not wanna take a chance of getting a yard here because of hurricanes and bad weather and all that, and that
Yeah.
was a lot of
Because
money.
you guys just put those in recently and
Yes,
filled that
sir.
yard up, so.
So they'll be carting them back and forth as needed.
Glad you asked that question.
And you'll have my
Right.
card as well, so if
Well,
you all
very
have
good.
any questions at all, you feel free to call me anytime. I stay here Monday through Thursday, and I leave back home on Fridays, unless I absolutely have to, but Fridays I go home.
Any further questions?
Hopefully you have nice warm weather and it'll be nice, safe drive.
No, sir, it's
No
still
weather.
colder down there.
Mayor, I recommend a motion to approve the 2 easements located in 1C. I'll second.
Motion on the floor made by Councilman Davalos, seconded by Councilman Ward to approve AEP's easement request 1A and 1C.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worel, Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, have a good evening.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, we're going back to B. To approve resolution number 2019-32, casting a vote for Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors, position 9. Alma?
You nominated Mr. Osuna a couple of weeks ago, so this is where you're gonna cast the ballot. Or the vote for the ballot, that's attached.
Ms. Wolf?
Make a motion to vote for Alan Lewis.
I second.
Thank you for your vote.
Okay, motion.
Are you sure?
This is your last chance. Forever hold your peace. Motion on the floor made by Councilman Worrell, seconded by Councilman Smith, to vote for, Mr. Ozuna for the Cameron Appraisal District Board of Directors, position 9.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Please, Mike.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Item C. Consideration possible action to approve the contract with the city of Los Fresnos for EMS services when required as a backup.
Gotcha.
Mr. Tony?
I met with Gene Daniels and spoke to him, and he agreed to come to Laguna Vista for $200 a call when Port Isabel is unable to respond. And we've shook hands on it already, and anyway, he said that he never said he would not respond. But $200 is basically wear and tear and gas for the ambulance to come to Laguna Vista, which then puts Port Isabel at ease because with their ESD, because they have a mutual aid package with their ESD, that puts them at Port Isabel at ease because they will still respond to Port Isabel. So we're just taking care of that problem. I was looking at some numbers. I think last year, the problem is we don't know which community they came to, Laguna Vista, Laguna Heights, or Port Isabel, Los Fresnos came to, but it was 40 times. So let's say they were all here, which they weren't, and Laguna Vista, that would be $8,000 per year at $200 a call. But that's less than that, but we just do not have a figure on that. So we're asking to go into contract with them to come respond to our community for that $200 a call here in Laguna Vista.
Thank you, Mr. Questions? Mr. Carter?
Is it okay to ask about item D? In the midst of talking about item C?
Yes, I mean, they're both posted.
Yeah,
so it's
they're
your-
both, they're
yeah.
kind of intertwined, and so $8,000, that's our worst case scenario.
I would say with paying Los Fresnos, yes.
Yeah, and when we look at item D, what are we looking at as far as the financial commitment there?
The financial commitment, right now we're at 32,000, and they increased it to 50,000, which is an $18,000 increase. And which, if we're gonna talk about that, then they requested, we'll go to item E, because included in that,
I know, it's all intertwined.
Sure.
it is all intertwined. They asked for an increase with the dispatch services, the dispatchers who call out EMS and everything from $15,000 to $20,000, a $5,000 increase. So they are all kind of intertwined. So everything together would be 23,000.
22,000 versus the 130,000 they were asking for to begin.
Yes, sir. And then
Nice work.
Good point.
Good job, Chief, thank you. We're in a binder for
Good point, Mr. Carter. Do you want to go back to item C? Questions on whichever,
Yeah.
state which one you want to talk about.
D. Okay, so on this, letter here from their city manager, what is it on? still have to come to an agreement after 1 year, or during this year, we're gonna be coming to an agreement. It says I'm attached, okay, so they attached the agreement, but it says this agreement is for 1 year, and we would revisit it
Next year,
next year?
yes,
This one?
the 20th of September of next year. September 30th.
This letter was generated,
On the contract, sorry,
Let-
Chief,
let-
there's a date.
Let Chief answer her question, please.
this letter was generated by the city manager there in Port Isabel. And just wanted to put this in here so y'all all know that
So,
we're gonna be revisiting probably what we were revisiting.
okay, so here's my question. So it says here, we anticipate receiving an invitation to submit proposals, that means we're going to invite them to come to our CDC meeting so that they can apply, or we can apply jointly, I guess, for items to be used in the second ambulance for funding, and for funding to staff a second shift of ambulance attendants. So, can you kind of go into further, like, how that would work, you know, noting that CDC has, we have to do the 60-day deal and all of that?
I would say, how does that look at? I would just say that that's what they asked for. I didn't discuss this. This was discussed among themselves. And that I think, the previous meeting, CDC came up at the, not this meeting, the last meeting, if I'm correct. And it just came up. And now they sent this letter saying this, to consider this for the city meeting, because it was discussed in our meeting.
Mr. Wall.
Yes, along the lines of that is, I mean, that's all the stuff that I believe that we have a year to work out. You know, right now, we're in a position where we don't have to enter into a 6-year, $750,000 contract. And personally, I think we jump at the chance, and things like what they anticipate, we worry about over the next 12 months before, or 11 months before we get into a situation, you know, where we have to come up with the next one.
Mr. Douglas and Mr. Carter.
Thank you. I just want to clarify for the record, Mr. Hakima says the town within reach to decline to participate in the grant application to obtain this ambulance. We never got that to the table, so we never declined anything. I just want to say that for the record. And then also, for the city attorney, the agreement says city will be the exclusive ambulance service for town. So if we approve the agreement with the city of Port Isabel, does that conflict anything with the city of Los Fresnos?
Only if we were to use Los Fresnos in preference to Port Isabel. My understanding is the way it's gonna work is that the only time we rely on Los Fresnos would be overflow as a backup when Port Isabel couldn't come.
Okay, so we're okay. if
We're okay. If we'd like though, we can specify that, you know, this does not include any, you know, this exclusivity does not include any situation whereby Port Isabel seeks the assistance of someone else to cover as a backup, just to make that absolutely clear. We can certainly approve this subject to the addition of that clarification.
Mr. Carter.
I would like to make a motion to accept the Los Fresnos EMS contract for EMS services.
I'll second.
A motion on the floor made by Mr. Carter, seconded by Mr. Wall to accept the contract with the city of Los Fresnos for EMS services when required.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worel,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, Chief, for working on that. Back to item D, consideration of possible action to approve the contract with the city of Port Isabel for EMS services for the 2019-20 fiscal year.
I have a few questions here. So you did not discuss with him, so this letter he sent, I kind of assumed that's what you all discussed, so this is something he just sent, and this is what he feels. So I agree with Mr. Warrell, we don't really have any other option. I'm just a little concerned with how he says you're owing to the foregoing factors. We expect the town of Laguna Vista to contribute towards the acquisition of the second ambulance, number one. And then number two, finally, we anticipate receiving an invitation to submit proposals to our CDC. So just wanna make note of that so that that's not part of the contract, but that's what they want for
No, that's just
future
a letter.
discussions.
It's a letter.
And we need to keep that in the
Sure,
back of our
it's,
minds.
we haven't approved anything that requires us to contribute toward the acquisition of the entity.
No, I know, I'm just saying, we just need to
Oh, yeah.
keep that in
Sure.
mind.
And further, with regard to the CDC, well, one, I mean, we don't need to invite anyone to submit a proposal for someone to be able to submit a proposal. Anyone can submit a proposal anytime they want. The involvement of the CDC would be probably beneficial to this situation because it is another source of funding that we could use in addition to the general fund to facilitate some aspect of ambulance service. Assuming it met the requirements, which I can find a way to make sure that it does. But there may even be some options that make it so that it's not subject to the 60-day notice provision. There are a few in the statute that aren't subject to that. I'm not sure yet whether or not this would be one of them, but we can look into that. And the other thing is we wouldn't necessarily have to wait for Isabel or any other applicant to set this up as a project. But that's something the city wanted to initiate. We would discuss that too.
Mr. Carter?
First of all, I think this is a great way to put a stopgap between what we were gonna possibly have and figure out, we have a year now to figure out what we're gonna do. I'd like to make a proposal, not, I'd like to accept the Port Isabel EMS agreement.
Motion.
A motion?
Just a motion.
I see.
Did you second that? That's okay, Ms. Carter and Ms. Carter. Sorry, Ms. Howard.
She's at home.
She was, Ms. Howard, you have a question?
Yes, on the agreement, on the second page, number 8, in the even refusals of transportation exceed 10 in 1 month, the town will pay the city a sum of $50 for each refusal. Is that standard, Mr. Rosen?
There are in exclusive franchise agreements involving a single EMS company, not a municipal EMS provider, but an EMS company in working out the agreements for compensation with the city. There are very often penalties for the calls that refuse. I think the thinking there is that it's somehow up to the municipal dispatch to make better determinations about when ambulances are to be called out to scenes and not the, and it shouldn't be the fault of it shouldn't be a penalty placed upon the EMS provider. This is the first one I've seen it whereby a municipal provider is doing it, although this is also the first time I've been involved in a contract between one municipal provider and another municipality. So while I'm certain this type of provision, maybe not a $50 per refusal, but some type of penalty provision is incorporated in agreements between private companies and municipalities. This would be akin to that.
Mr. Warble, Mr. Carter, Mr. Warble, and Mr. Carter.
Can you tell me how many refusals we have a month in general on average?
No, I can't, but I can tell you, I've already started a log here at the PD where each officer will log down each refusal, if we get a refusal. But as exact number, not a whole lot, not a whole lot.
Well, do you think it's unlikely we're gonna get well beyond the 10 a
think-
month, or?
I think it's unlikely we'll go beyond 10 a month, yes. Very much unlikely.
Mr. Carter?
Same question.
Ms.
I was just gonna mention that day when we had that meeting, when Mr. Woods said there was 124 calls from January to September and 94 were transports. So that's the difference, yeah. And that's from January to September. Yeah. So that kind of gives you some idea.
Anybody else? Okay. Motion on the floor, was made by Councilman Carter, seconded by Councilwoman Smith, to approve contract with the City of Port Isabel for EMS services for the 2019-20 fiscal year.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos, Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Warren,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Item E, consideration possible action to approve the contract with the city of Port Isabel for dispatch and jail use.
This was also discussed, and I was already aware, probably for the last 2-3 years, that they wanted to increase this fee. And, for whatever reason, it didn't happen, so this was discussed when we had the meeting, and, that's what they asked for, and I said, okay, and I'll take it to the council. And, that's where we're at. It's an increase from 15,000 right now, and it's also divided also between the PD and the fire department out of our budgets to cover that, and for the calls, and it's increased of $5,000 to $20,000.
Make a motion to approve.
I do too. I'm sorry, you don't go ahead with your motion. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
I'll second her motion, she
Okay, all
And
right.
let me also mention, Mayor, I just noticed there's a typo in the.
I did too, that's what I was gonna bring up. Go ahead.
That was my-
And is this the one, $20,000
Yes,
and
yeah,
then
it reads
$10,000?
20,000, but the numbers,
Yeah.
the numbers are.
I know, I was like,
That's what I had to say.
We can default to the
I'll-
name.
You must
Ms.
have it
Howard, Ms.
written.
Howard. Did you have anything? Yes, no? Motion on the floor made by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Davalos, to approve the contract with the city of Port Isabel for dispatch and jail use, just make sure it's the correct amount, right?
Can't we default to the name?
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard. Councilmember Davalos.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Worel.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passed. Item F, to formally approve the city manager's residency outside of Laguna Vista pursuant to section 3.02 of the Home Rule Charter. Councilmembers Davalos and Smith, do you have anything to say?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the city manager residency outside of Laguna Vista.
Any discussion? Mr. Carter?
So, I just wanna make sure that when the charter was passed, the city manager at the time was living outside of the city, and he was grandfathered in. So, are we able to make that decision?
Yeah, yes, because it's provided by the charter. Without the city council making that decision, whoever became the city manager would be bound by that restriction. And so it's necessary for this body to take action to waive it for any particular city manager.
Only with the approval.
We know this, yeah, and we know he's actively looking to move it, so.
We didn't put any questions.
Other questions? Councilman Douglas made a motion, seconded by Councilman Smith, to approve city manager's residency out of Laguna Vista.
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard.
yes.
Councilmember Davalos.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Worel.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Item G, consideration action to appoint Tony David as the general manager for Laguna Vista Community Development Corporation. This is formality. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Was that? Okay. Motion on the floor made by the mayor, seconded by Councilman Carter, to appoint Tony David as the general manager for Laguna Vista CDC.
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Worel.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Consideration and action to appoint Alma Deckard as the finance manager for the Laguna Vista Community Development Corporation.
I'll make that
Question.
Everybody.
Everybody. Alma, who did you get?
I didn't hear anybody.
Oh, I heard three.
I just had a question.
Oh.
Okay, okay. Who said first?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Ms. Howard?
I return.
Okay. Mr. Carter?
I just have a question regarding the G and H, no, I'm sorry, H and I, with the same person being the finance manager and the corporate secretary. I would just like to see separation, more of a check and balance.
I have a question.
Is that your question, Mr. Howard?
So I was gonna ask Ms. Deckard, are you okay with this appointment? Like,
I've been doing them.
I know, but I'm just saying so that we could,
Well, if you were gonna split them, then probably I would keep the finance one, cause I do the accounting and the reports, and then just appoint, maybe Anna to the secretary part. I mean, I don't know who else, that would be it.
I understand we have a problem with what we've all discussed in regards to all this. I just think we need to have two different people just for checks and balances.
Pursuant to the bylaws, you can appoint anyone as secretary, one of the CDC board members perhaps, might be
I think that'd be a great idea.
Would they be voting members if they are secretaries?
They could still,
I'm gonna tell you, I've attempted to be a voting member and a secretary of a body in the past, and it's a huge pain.
oh yeah,
I'm currently one of those, and it is hard, it is very hard. I like the Anna idea for that reason. I like the Anna idea.
Well, let's go ahead and vote on the
Yeah.
the finance manager, and then we'll go to the next one. So motion on the floor, made by Councilman Worrell, seconded by Councilman Davalos, to appoint Alma Decker as finance manager for the Laguna Vista CDC.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
yes.
Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes. Motion passes. Item I, consideration action to appoint Alma Decker as the corporation secretary for the Laguna Vista Community Development Corporation.
I'd like to make a motion to consider an action to appoint Ana Hernandez as the corporate secretary, or the CDC secretary of the Laguna Vista CDC.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor made by Councilwoman Howard, seconded by Councilman Carter, to appoint Ana Hernandez as the corporation secretary for the Laguna Vista Community Development Corporation.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Motion passes.
Ms. Smith, did you want? Oh,
Item J, consideration possible action to appoint a member of the town council that acts as an ambassador between town council and town staff. Councilmember Smith and Worrell, you have anything to say, review?
Well, the reason I put this on there was to make sure we don't get into a situation that we were previously in, where things were said to one side of the party and the opposite was said to the other side of the party, and people were warned against each other, and it just created discord and a dysfunctional system. And I think it's important that we have a way for staff to communicate to council members when they truly have a concern, and, you know, as a purpose to have a more functional system in the end of the day, so that we don't run in a, not interfere, not make decisions, just have a open door, like a HR. We don't have an HR department, so we have to find a way that we have a healthy checks and balances system.
Mr. Carter?
Question for the attorney.
yes.
Since we have a city manager, form of government, how does that play out?
Well, our charter defines our city manager relationship. It doesn't contain any express prohibitions against something like an ambassadorship. The general idea behind it is that the council not become involved in anything that is administrative or executive when it comes to the management of employees, like making termination decisions, making promotion decisions, and that kind of thing. It doesn't sound to me like that's what's being proposed here. I think the overriding, I guess, thing that pointing toward the benefit of an arrangement like this is that, like you mentioned, we don't have an HR or ombudsman type position that would prevent the kind of thing that you observed in the past, where no one was able to communicate to the city council because there was a wall erected in front of that communication. I think as long as the role of the ambassador wasn't taking on one of those roles that I mentioned, either direct administration or direct supervision of employees in an evaluative sense or in a hiring, firing, or disciplinary sense, then there shouldn't be anything that about our charter language or about the fact that we're a city manager that would prohibit this type of some kind of clearinghouse of issues that might not be forwarded to the council. It should be.
I don't want to interrupt you, just to make sure I get to talk. Did I interrupt you?
No, that was it.
Oh, okay. All right, number one, it's not directed at you, to make rules like this for the people that are coming down the pipe, not the people that are here. Okay, I want you to. In the charter, it says, interference with administration, except for the purposes of inquiries and investigations under section 2.08, the council or its members shall deal with town employees who are subject to the direction and supervision of the town manager solely through the town manager. That's the only part that makes me nervous about it. Now, it goes on to say neither the council nor its members shall give orders or direction to any such employee, either public or private.
Right.
As long as we can do it within those parameters, I think it's a great idea.
I think the sentence after the sentence that uses the word deal it provides interpretation of what the charter means by deal with. I mean, deal is pretty ambiguous. It could mean anything ranging from no council member is ever allowed to talk to a city employee to council members are not allowed to deal with them in certain employment aspects. I think that's more what it means. In other words, it says deal and then it goes on to say you're not to direct, you're not to supervise, you're not to do anything that directly impacts their employment status.
So the second sentence defines the word.
It defines the context in which that word deal is used. So again, I don't necessarily read anything to prohibit a pure sort of, just kind of an ambassador type relationship where assuming a council member is willing to serve in that role and doesn't mind hearing, things that may be, frivolous or may not amount to much, under the idea that maybe something material will filter through every once in a while in a way that would prevent something like we may have seen in the past, then I think it's consistent with the charter.
My original wording did say ombudsman, I don't know why it was changed to ambassador. Is that just for more, legal? I just felt ombudsman explains the.
Yeah, I might prefer ambassador to ombudsman.
That's fine.
That sounds more like an office within the city.
No, that's fine, whatever you think, but that was my initial intake, an ombudsman.
Yeah, we have discussed this before, and would it be prudent to actually have a council member serving in that position when we're trying to find somebody that's kind of like a third party set aside strictly for ombudsman legal situations?
Well, I mean, if you had someone who served as an ombuds person, like an official HR director whose duties solely revolved around dealing with the HR aspects of employment, then I'd feel less comfortable about having this type of position. But that's a luxury because you'd have to hire someone for that.
Thinking about the future,
sure,
where it can be here, and then and when politics gets in the way.
I mean, well, the need for something like this would go away probably if you had a dedicated HR director, someone whose job it was simply to deal with.
Would you be able to be the ombudsman?
Well, I mean,
I'm just wondering.
No, I specifically wanted the council member, as my wording said.
I mean,
I just get a little concerned with the future council member taking this role where there might be very sensitive and highly legal matters for anyone in the council to be the middle person in a litigation, potentially a litigation situation.
Well, I mean, that's a valid concern in that just in a purely hypothetical scenario where, well, let's say that the council member serving as the ambassador were the recipients for the first time of some kind of complaint about something like harassment or something like discrimination within the workplace that wasn't forwarded through the chain of command. The council member's involvement might make that person a witness in any subsequent litigation. Although, I mean, it wouldn't be a huge issue. It would be harder to shield that council member from having to testify in a deposition or in a lawsuit involving an employee, because the council member would be required to come in and say, yes, this person, this person complained to me on this day about this, and that's what I heard. And then I forwarded it on to the city attorney, or I forwarded it on to the city manager.
Or the mayor.
Yeah.
Or
And
the
so,
council.
so it's not a bad thing necessarily, it's just that the thing that would normally prevent any member of the council from having to be called into court on any matters is that level of separation that you normally have. If someone is serving as an ambassador, some of that level kind of goes away. But it's not anything that can't be shepherded in a way to make sure that the council member serving in this role is strictly serving as basically an ear for that kind of thing. Is not making any decisions, is doing nothing more than making sure that there's no wall that prevents that kind of information from ultimately getting through to the council to consider as a body, in a way that may have happened in the past. So I mean, there is that. You do raise a good point in that someone serving in this role might be expected to have to answer questions about what he or she heard from employees.
Mr. Wilson and Mr.
Mr. Zuni, you said we don't have a HR director per se, but the city secretary serves as the HR director. Is that correct, Elma? If anybody files for unemployment or anybody that goes to you, correct? Okay, so we have an HR director, so is that a difference now?
Well, she certainly serves probably every function of every HR director that I've ever met, but she's not the nominal HR director. And so, I mean, it could make a difference, except that what if the issue is one that is at the level of let's say Eleanor, the city secretary, or the de facto HR director, or above. What would prevent, or what would ensure that the council would receive the information that it needed with respect to that position? Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean you're right in that ideally, the HR, the person performing the HR functions would handle this situation, and we do have someone who's handling every aspect of HR functions. We don't have a dedicated HR person because she fills so many other roles as well.
Mr. Clark.
Oh, excuse me. Does this position, I just said Mrs. Howard.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You got to order Howard too.
I've been calling you everything tonight, so one of you speak.
Does this position warrant any type of parameters written out, just to make sure that we know the exact obligation, duty, role, responsibility, chain of command type?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I think one of the things that I'd like to do, first of all, assuming that the council appoints someone, is I want to sit down with the appointee and say, these are the things that you can do, and these are the things that you probably shouldn't do, just so that we can keep in line with the prohibitions in the charter, and have a conference with the appointee that way. And then maybe that can result then in a set of guidelines that either just sort of exist in our files, or maybe could be formally approved by the council.
Are you finished? I'm sorry. Yes. Okay.
Mr. Howard?
Mr. Howard?
I have to say, I'm thoroughly against it. I am. I think it dilutes the chain of command, and it also dilutes the trust that we put who we've hired to run our city, and then the people that are in charge. And I just, working in public for so many years as I did, I just see this being a bad idea. And we have whistleblower laws, we have plenty of ways for people to come to the council in legal ways that are, when abuses are happening. And I just see this as a way of causing a lot of problem between town staff, town council, and town people that live here. I mean, I just see all bad things happening personally.
Ms. Smith?
I appreciate your opinion, and we're totally allowed to feel like that. I totally disagree with you, because for the past 10 years, we saw the opposite, and there was no communication, and, in fact, the structure fell apart completely, and in a very unhealthy way, and I wanna avoid that to happen again. This is just for me, the way I think the manager, and this is in no way to say that I distrust our current manager whatsoever. I just think it's a healthy, for me, the city manager's system, or form of government, thank you, there's a lack of checks and balances, I think, in the way it's set up. But I also understand why it's set up. I mean, when you have a small city like us, you cannot do it any other way, really. But there is a big gap there where power can be abused, like we have seen and experienced, and I'm just wanting to avoid that. And I hope there's no grievance against anybody here. I'm just, again, I'm saying for future, that's why I'm doing. But you're totally good, you're allowed to be against it.
I guess I look at it that we make the rules and town staff follows, make sure that the rules are followed,
By all means, I'll do what you wanna do. But so you're aware, I've already told Alma, Anna, I even told Willie and the guys, and my officers have always known this. If y'all ask them a question, they're to tell you the truth. I said before they complain, that by all means complain, but they have better given me the opportunity to fix the problem. If I haven't fixed the problem, complain. Now, as far as someone to go to, I believe it's written in our town policy for whatever action, write-ups, things like that, for termination, they can appeal that process to the mayor. It's already in policy. Just be aware, because, and I know this because I looked it up.
Thank you, Chief, I really appreciate you saying that, and again, I wanna reiterate again, this was totally not against you, because I trust you I probably trust you, but again, this is for the future, you know, what if it happens if you resign, and I'm just saying, I'm just thinking we should try it out, and, if anybody else against it, that's fine too. I certainly don't wanna step on your toes, but,
Councilmember Smith, okay, so this council member would report to us? Or like, can you give me like a visual, like the day, not the day-to-day, but just like an overall, the idea that you had of this council member and what their role would serve, like in the, like what would, like
let's say
how
for
would,
example,
what would they do?
there's an issue an employee has, and it is not getting addressed, the employee went through the correct chain of command, thank you, and nothing got done, and no resolution was made, no answers were given. And for that, to give that employee an opportunity to also come, to have a door to come to. Because we've previously seen that they were scared or not able to, or felt they were unable to, that's all. But if everybody agrees and we can know that everybody can come to the mayor, then that's great too. As it's written, I didn't even know about that.
So like,
But as I've said before, it didn't work.
so it's
before,
not just, is it just solely for complaints, or is it for like everything?
I think it's merely for things that there was no answer given, there
Okay.
was no resolution. And this employee felt that he or she had no answer, no way out, and they're essentially trapped in this position, and they feel like they have nowhere to go. Because the chain of command was, and and it's like an HR situation.
No.
Just come to a council member, like some people have, they call us and they say, hey, what's up with this?
Yeah,
We're like, well, you have to talk to so-and-so, and so call the mayor, that's all.
yeah. And
We,
so,
Go ahead and finish.
Okay, so, in a perfect world, without this, how would it work?
well, like it should,
Everybody-
like it should
like
work,
it
is
should.
everybody goes to the
Okay.
city manager essentially.
Right, okay.
Like, and
In a
as I said
perfect
before,
world.
in the perfect world, but as we've seen that fire miserably before, and I just wanna avoid that situation.
Mr. Carter, Mr. Davos, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Zona.
Are we making this too
No, I'll just
complicated?
answer.
I don't wanna make this too complicated, you guys.
Mr. Carter.
That's nothing.
Oh.
Just,
Would you want me to call you Mr. Howard?
maybe next time I'll answer.
I know that it
Mr.
was
Davos.
previously, it's happened before.
Okay, well, I guess I do have something to say. Even though it happened before, doesn't mean it's gonna happen again, and even if it does happen again, then management has failed. And management failed, but management's gone now. So the system did work, even though it didn't work in a timely manner as fast as you would have liked it to work, it did work.
Good point.
And so, it's like, yeah, and who's to say that the employee's always right? And that the manager's not right?
Exactly, but then you can all talk about it.
Yeah, but it's not our decision to question the person who's in charge, who deals with it on a day-to-day basis. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Davos.
Mr. President, correct me if I'm wrong, every person who has a complaint, citizen, or employee, or one of us, they can go to the Board of Ethics, correct?
Well, yeah, anything involving an ethics complaint, but yeah, can, okay, that could.
Which is a problem with somebody in the offices, or, you know, why do we have a Board of Ethics there? I'm, just to clear that out.
Well, that's primarily for conflicts of interest.
Okay, so somebody, well, with laws, ordinances, it says, charter, it said, so this
Right.
person, like Councilwoman Smith said, an employee has a problem and they don't know where to go. Can they go to the Board of Ethics?
Probably not. If it's an employment problem, employment issue, that's probably not something that's within the jurisdiction of the Board of Ethics, unless it had to do with an employee complaining about some ethics violation, like a conflict of interest violation,
Or they feel
theft or
mistreated, or they
safety.
feel something,
Yeah, that
sexual
would-
harassment or something?
That would not belong before the Board of
Okay,
Ethics.
just-
That would belong through the process of handling complaints. I mean, in an ideal world, people, they have their complaints and they're addressed up through the chain of command. And not every member of the chain of command is gonna handle it in an adequate way. And that becomes a performance or disciplinary issue for the person in the chain of command who failed to handle it adequately. Now, ideally, that itself then is supposed to flow up the chain of command. I think what Councilman Smith is contemplating is a situation where an employee is in need of legitimate relief and is not getting it through that chain of command process. Now, I will say that for every one of those employees, whoever serves in this role will probably get 10 complaints that weren't forwarded through the chain. And so, it's not something that a person would want to accept the appointment for who didn't like talking on the phone, or didn't like answering texts or emails from employees who just like to complain. I mean, whoever serves in that role, the council appoints it, is gonna get a lot of that, a lot of things that, and I think, when if this role gets created, and I have that conference with the person who fills it, one of the first things I'm gonna say is, the first question needs to be asked is, have you submitted this issue that you have through the chain of command?
Yes, of course.
And if you haven't, then you need to go back, and that's the first conversation that takes place between the ambassador and the employee. And then, eventually, though, if we do catch someone who simply can't get relief through normal channels, that will have identified for you some deficiency in the chain of command, something that will have to be, ultimately referred to the city manager to say, hey, you have this problem because of the chain of command, or the problem lies with you, and you need to fix it. I mean, that's the way that, I think that may have answered the question on how is this supposed to work. That's the way I can kind of foresee it working or being effective. It's just that you're gonna have to kind of fish through a
In my
baseless
mind,
items.
I almost disagree with you. I know that there will be some issues, but I almost think there might be one legitimate issue a year. You know, I'm sure some people might, but we are such a small community and I think we have such effective leadership right now. I would imagine it's like maybe one year that would really, I don't need for that, you know.
I mean, it
And my
may be,
I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah,
Mr. Gonzalez.
yeah, so right now we have a system in place, and that would be with the resident with the mayor. The mayor knows her parameters and, or her role in that, and it goes to you.
I mean, I do wanna say something about that. That provision, that's a formal, complaint process that occurs when the city manager has already made a decision as to an employment issue. So it's not like a free-for-all provision that allows any employee to contact the mayor over anything that may be employment related. It's a formal process that's within the current version of the policy. And so I don't know, you were thinking that it would just be the general ability for.
I guess I would like to see what parameters you would lay on that position to be able to decide whether or not I would want it, in terms of, I mean, you could see, I think, oh, ambassador, okay, I want to walk around, somebody says something to me,
Yeah.
I go to you, or, I mean, what exactly, you know, because people are political.
Sure.
And right now, I trust people here. 10 years from now, they may not be the people you want here, and that will be corrupt too, so it'll be the same thing again. It'll be back to being a system that's not gonna.
Remember, this position will carry no authority. This is not a position of authority at all. It's merely an ear.
In year,
And then eventually that can bring the issue in front of the council. That will ultimately decide what needs to be done with this issue. There's no authority in this position.
And that's where, that's where I think you're completely wrong, is because you are the authority.
I'm one of seven, or we are one of seven votes.
You are the authority. You
No,
are.
we're not. We
More
are
than
one
you
of
think
seven.
you are. You are an elected official, and you have to take yourself out of that picture because you've hired people to take care of that. You were elected by the people, you weren't appointed to the job. It is just like, in my opinion, it is just because you might not be here later on, right? All of us are gonna be gone in 10 years. And so, we could end up like a city that I know, and it not always good.
I'm just saying this, I don't think anything official will be created that's not gonna be written into a charter. And I mean, if it doesn't work, well, we can just vote on it and vote it down over.
I would like to make a motion to instruct Mr. Ozuna to come up with some parameters, just the city, okay, as to what the position would, their guidelines.
and may I add to your motion? And how that is any different with what is already in place with the mayor?
But the option to go to the mayor is only after exhausting all of the other, and there's been an official decision.
That's good to know, that's a good motion, I'll second that motion.
Okay. At the school district I used to work at, any other school district, government option that I've ever been involved with, is you have to go file a complaint, and those complaints have to go through the chain of command. And then if those are denied, then eventually that does get to the council. And that's basically what Tony David said earlier, because if there's no other choice, then it gets to the mayor. And I think it just should stay there. I don't see spending a dime having our council, even though I'd love you to make some more money, but you know, I just don't think I don't think it's a good use of our funds when we already have everything in place. I just can't explain how much I'm against it.
Any further comments?
But it's been a great conversation, by the way. It has.
Well, I just see where it's a preventative method, you know, it's preventative, even though it's not current, it just, yeah, just open wound still.
If there's no further comment, motion on the floor made by Councilwoman Howard, seconded by Councilman Gonzalez to instruct Mr. Ozuna to come up with parameters for this ambassador between town council and staff. Did I say that correctly? Ms. Howard? Mr. Gonzalez? Ms. Howard? No.
Mayor Houston,
No.
Councilmember Carter,
No.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos, Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell,
No.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Did you vote no, Mr. Worrell?
I voted no.
No, okay.
Well,
Motion,
can I ask
motion
a quick
fails.
question? Does that scrap the,
No.
No,
this just gives us more, okay?
no, this. Did it pass or fail?
It failed.
It failed, yeah.
It failed. All right. Just so we work through the whole process, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Councilman Smith as the ambassador.
Well, we don't have
No, it creates,
It creates, yeah.
It created
That
an-
would be the motion.
Exactly, it's just the rule.
Can I say it? I'll second it, I guess.
Sorry.
Motion on the floor made by Councilman Worrell, seconded by Councilwoman Smith, to appoint Councilwoman Smith as ambassador between the council and town staff.
Mayor Houston,
No.
Councilmember Carter,
No.
Councilmember Howard,
I like to say, I do appreciate Councilmember Smith, but I'd like to see the parameters prior to appointing somebody, so no.
Councilmember Davalos, Councilmember Gonzalez,
No.
Councilmember Worrell,
I'm gonna vote yes, just because I made a motion.
That's what I did earlier. That's what I did earlier. Yeah, you kinda like, oh,
This was way more complicated than you think.
it was good.
Councilwoman Smith, did you vote?
I did those,
Okay, I
yes.
didn't hear you. Did you vote? And it's nothing against you, I just don't feel like this is necessary.
Nothing against Alma.
Well, let me tell you, that was a tough one.
That was a good one,
I
though.
like it, I like it.
That was
I thought
fun.
that would take 1 minute, but.
Good job, guys.
Okay.
no, we
Which
said,
one?
the one, it's gonna get into discussion is that one, Chief and I said.
Y'all are the winners of chicken.
Totally.
Boy.
Chief, I'm sorry it's taken so long. Item K, consideration and possible action to approve travel for 2 firemen to Lufkin to secure free fire gear from Texas A&M Helping Hands. Chief Robbie, do you have anything to say?
So with this, it'll be me and one of the firefighters. I'm hoping to go to Lufkin the week of Thanksgiving, leaving on Tuesday. So Tuesday we get there, we spend the night. Wednesday morning we meet with Helping Hands, which is a group from Texas A&M and the Forestry Department, where when cities like Houston, Austin, San Antonio, the bigger cities, when they get rid of gear that's still usable, they donate it to Helping Hands, and it takes any kind of liability off of them if something goes wrong with the gear, let's to say. And Helping Hands, in return, they do a grant program to volunteer fire departments. Most of our gear that we have that wasn't purchased new this past year is originally from Helping Hands. Because you have, a battalion chief in Houston, you have 40 of them, and they wear their gear one time. And then it meets Houston's date, so then Houston, instead of throwing it away, they donate it. So I'd like permission to travel there to acquire this gear, helmets, gloves, and rescue equipment.
Tony, do you have anything to add to that?
It's a good program, and it's good equipment, and did a good job with the grant getting it.
Thank you.
Motion.
I'd like to make,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion, to approve travel for 2 firemen or firefighters to Lufkin to secure free fire gear from Texas A&M Helping Hands.
Motion on the floor made by Councilwoman Howard, seconded by Councilwoman Smith, to grant travel for 2 firemen to Lufkin for the Helping Hands.
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Worel.
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Item L, item M, consideration of possible action regarding recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to replat Paradise Cove subdivision, block 3, lots 35 and 36. Alma?
That was approved unanimously by the P and Z board on, when they met on November the 4th, and it's basically 2 lots that are converted into 1 lot. It's very basic.
I'd like to make a motion
Yeah.
regarding recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission to replat the Paradise Cove subdivision, block 3, lots 35 and 36.
Now second.
Motion on the floor made by Councilwoman Howard, seconded by Councilman Gonzalez, to approve the recommendation from Planning and Zoning for block 3, lots 35 and 36.
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
I'm looking at the map.
This is the replat right here, this is before. It was 35 and 36,
Okay,
and then it's become 35A.
Okay, yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worel,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Yes. Motion passes. Item N, consideration of possible action to authorize staff to go out for RFQs for engineer services for the EDA grant. Tony?
This is a EDA grant for 23 acres for ecotour system for water and sewer. For that grant, I'd like to go out for it, use on that.
I make a motion to approve to go out for the EA grant.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Smith, seconded by Councilman Gonzalez, to authorize staff to go out for RFQs for the EDA grant.
Mayor Houston.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Councilmember Howard.
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilmember Worel,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Item O, consideration of possible action to authorize to procure the general administration services for the TCDP 2019-20 grant.
Yes,
Tony?
this grant is already being overseen by Carlos Mondragon, who's our initiative, and what this grant is the repaving of streets for the cul-de-sacs, Morris, Davis, Banker, and Saunders streets, cul-de-sacs. And this is a $225,000 grant, and the city would match $45,000.
Ms. Howard?
With this, and I spoke to you earlier, but with this current, grant writer, is there a possibility to, is anything left behind from previous administration I'm just worried about? Okay, and so the way we found out about this particular grant writer was accidental. So is there any way that I would like to know the consensus on that. I know that he's written some of our grants before, just wanna make sure that we're all okay with this particular grant writer.
I know he's the town, Alma, you can Swiss better than I.
See,
He's town's used him
yeah,
for
Mr.
years.
Mondragon really knows grants, and he's really, he does a lot of the legwork, of, like when we have to survey, like, he's gotta go out there, actually hit the pavement and do the surveys, because we've gotta have 51% of moderate to low income. So he does all of that, and he does a lot of the publications, and because he's gotta be, and chief is not certified, you have to be certified, and I think Mr. Vela had actually just gone to the workshop to get certified, like a couple months ago, to be able to work the grants, and neither one of them as is, so and Mr. Mondragon has done our work for several years, and I'm not sure how it was that you all didn't know about it, but he's done it for many years, you know, and we pay him quarterly, initially.
Mr. Carter?
it's always, he's done all the work.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's always been a mystery, but I've always known, I mean, I don't understand. It's,
Yeah.
he's been working this, I mean, forever.
Questions, Ms. Smith?
So how much is the grant for?
$275,000.
And we would be responsible for 45.
45,000.
And when will this grant pay out?
Not till the following budget, I think.
No, it won't kick out
So
till
it's not in
next
this,
year.
so it's not in this,
No, no.
so it's not in this current budget. So we have to budget it for next
For
fiscal year.
next year, yes.
Correct. And this is something that has to be, or I'm sorry, this is something we plan to do before the repaving of these roads?
This grant was already in action on the previous administration, yes.
For the repaving of the four school sites, and they're in bad state, I imagine.
This finishes off almost the entire town.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was our plan from years ago, was to repave the entire town.
The original town.
This was the finish.
And when will we know if we did get it? In time to budget it for a fiscal year, that's my big question. Will we know in time if we got it, so we can budget it for that fiscal year?
Yes, I think Mr. Maragón is very good at staying up to date, because you have to do hearings and everything, and, he's educated me on that, on how to do that, we would know.
I'll make a motion to approve, to authorize the chief to go out for the TCDP grant.
Motion on the floor made by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Delarose, to authorize city manager to go out for a TCDP grant.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard, Councilmember Davalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell,
The motion worded right to accomplish what we want? It says to authorize general administration services, Carlos Monterone.
It's
Am I on the wrong?
I don't know.
Am I on the wrong page?
General Administration Services
I don't know.
is the information.
I'm on the wrong end. Yes.
and Councilmember Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item P, consideration of possible action to designate the scoring committee to review proposals for the TCDP 2019-2020 grants. Tony?
My understanding is that the committee usually, consists of the city manager, Alma, and Ms. Smith.
I missed you. Say that again. I'm
My
sorry, I was
understanding
reading
is the
something.
last time they did this with the scoring committee for a
scoring
different
committee?
company.
Oh,
The
yes. Oh,
scoring
yes, and I
committee,
helped you.
that it's usually the city manager and one of the council members, I think Ms. Smith has been doing it.
Yes, I did. That was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Then I make a motion to appoint Councilman Smith on the committee along with the city manager and the city secretary.
I'll second.
No, you're just making up for the previous situation.
We don't have any
It's
hard
a lot of
feelings.
work.
No hard feelings. Okay, motion on the floor made by the mayor, seconded by Councilman Carter to appoint Councilman Smith, city manager and city secretary to the scoring committee.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
Motion passes. Item Q, advisory board appointments, consideration and action to appoint residents to the following advisory board. Board of Adjustments, there's three openings. Rafael Salazar wants to be reappointed.
You'll make a motion to appoint Rafael Salazar?
Motion on the floor made by Councilman Davalos, seconded by Councilman Gonzalez to reappoint Rafael Salazar to the Board of Adjustments.
Mayor Houston,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith.
I'll make a motion to appoint Silky Vega Mayor to the
Second.
Hold on. Okay, there's not anybody else for Board of Adjustments, okay. Motion on the floor made by Councilman Davalos and seconded by Councilwoman Smith to appoint Sylvia Degobeo to the Ethics Board.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes. Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Anna Backus to the library board.
I'll second that. Motion on the floor made by Councilman Davalos, seconded by the mayor to reappoint Anna Backus to the library board.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Motion passes. Any more for that? Item R, city manager's report.
Yes, council, the Christmas tree lighting event will be held on December 5th, 2019. I believe Alma said she's already working on getting people here for the event,
What time?
5:30.
5:30.
Sorry, I announced it wrong the other day.
And then, I want to tell you about the library grant. The librarian Buddha got $10,237 grant from the Ladd and Catherine Hatcher Library Foundation. It's for three new computer stations for the kiddos and everything at the library, so real happy for her. She's real excited.
That's great.
And from the police department, I want to let y'all know, they want those high dollar ones, but with no cost to the city. We use our police forfeiture account that we've been working on since we've gotten here, and bought brand new body cameras and docking stations for the police officers out of that account. And that's the police report.
Congratulations to the police department and to Florida.
I also want to make, sorry, I didn't say that earlier, but to congratulate recommend Chief for going to Helping Hands and giving more stuff. That's great.
Item S, executive session, there'll be an executive session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act as authorized by the Texas Government Code regarding any matter listed on the agenda pursuant to section 551.071, consultation with town attorney, 551.072, deliberation regarding real property.
I'll make a motion to go into executive.
We're really only doing it, so
Okay.
we can get to stick right there.
551.087, deliberation. 551.074, deliberation regarding personnel matters. Deliberation concerning city manager's contract. Need a motion?
Go into executive session.
Motion on the floor by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Davalos. Going to executive session at 7:33.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard? Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez? Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Motion passes. Executive seven at 7:54. Oh yes, please leave your binders with them. Take your papers and go. Item D, consideration of possible action on the city manager's contract.
I'll make a motion to approve the city manager's contract.
I'll second
Motion on the floor made by Councilman Davos, seconded by Councilman Carter, to approve the city manager's contract.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard?
Yes.
Councilmember Davalos? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Hallelujah. Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Worrell, seconded by Councilman Smith, by Councilwoman Smith, at 7:55.
Mayor Houston?
Yes.
Councilmember Carter?
Yes.
Councilmember Howard? Councilmember Davalos?
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilmember Worrell?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?